Hold on. Let me see if I can find the live feed. There I am. Let me see if I can find the live feed. So this is Saturday. I've got to erase some stuff first. Okay, Saturday morning, February 15th. Okay, and we're going to share it to the internet, to memories and live video. Oh, well, it's shared it to sporting. Okay. All right. So nobody's in yet, just me. Now James is in. I need to find where Scott told me. There it is. I just didn't go down far enough. Sam is in. Well, the Misty Rain is here. We're eating at Angelo's, 1 o'clock. We hadn't been there in a while. Ginger's in, Sam's in. Good morning. The reason I'm late, I actually left the house early enough to get here by 7 or 7:30, but I had one of our members has a good friend who was a CIA analyst for 28 years. And I met with him and I interviewed him for about 2 hours, I guess, hour and 45 minutes. What an amazing story. The stuff that we think we know, we don't know anything. For instance, when the CIA had figured out that bin Laden was the culprit behind all of this stuff, when Clinton was in office, they had bin Laden in a location that they knew. That was in 98. It was next door to a mosque. Clinton didn't feel like, he thought the repercussion if somebody in the mosque got injured. But at this time we had these high-powered drones that were precise. So Clinton misses that attempt. And during the while, he bombs the USS Cole. He orchestrates the first bombing of the World Trade Center, the Marine barracks, and then another hotel. I mean, now he's killed thousands already. And so they get another attempt, and Clinton again says it's not 100%. Well, nothing's 100%. But the CIA team told him, "Look, you're at the end of your presidency, you can't run again, so there's no way you can get political damage, but he didn't do it. When George Bush comes to office, the CIA operatives, there was the first group of CIA operatives that were tasked to find out who's behind all this terror stuff was all ladies. There was no men. And that team researched bin Laden for almost 20 years till they got him. So George Bush comes in. He meets with the CIA director. The CIA director tells him, look, a major problem, our thoughts, the most important person in terror right now and has declared a jihad against the United States is Osama bin Laden. Well, Bush said, I've got other things to do, so he just dismissed it. And so they pulled back the intense search that they once had. And so to make a long story short, when 9/11 happens, then, of course, naturally, then that woke up George Bush's eyes, and this gentleman that I met with who worked closely, he was in the bin Laden group. And naturally, I was setting up my cameras and he said, hey, I'm going. There's no recording of this. So I said, okay. But, it was really interesting. So he said, so it was the day after 9/11, the CIA could ask for anything, and it got approved. Within an hour. You could have asked for $10 billion and they would have done it because of the collateral damage of 9/11. But another thing that, and I know George Bush, I've done details on his cars. He's set right here. They had another opportunity to get bin Laden, and Bush decided that he wasn't going to take action on that. So, but the main thing with the Bush deal, this guy told me, is that the military, now you got to understand, it took him a while the military and the CIA and the FBI, all of those groups are all different. So whatever the CIA does doesn't have anything to do with the military. They have their own operatives. They have their own special ops people, just like the SEALs and stuff like that. So the military and intelligence agencies were telling Bush that they have bin Laden in the mountains of Tora Bora, which we all know they bombed the hell out of that place. But there was a back door, which we all heard about that, but Mujahideen and these other two groups were guarding that, so when he come out, they're going to kill him. Well, the CIA operatives researched those two commanders, and they worked hand in hand with bin Laden to get rid of the Soviets. So they then finally got a face-to-face with Bush and said, look, these guys you got watching the back door, they're going to let him go. That's exactly what happened. I can't believe we're that stupid that you don't listen to the people that knows. So then everybody, including myself, gives Obama no credit at all. The very first meeting he had with the CIA when he took office is, your most important task is to find and kill Osama bin Laden. And then it took many years later. It was towards the end of Obama's presidency, but he came on board and said, you need to find Osama bin Laden. That's your main task. So it was really interesting. I wish I could have recorded it. I wish that he would have come here and sit down and said all of that, but I understand. Nice guy. You'd look at him and you'd think somebody with the CIA, man, that guy looks like a librarian. But the main team, the people that actually came up with the intel on bin Laden, was a group of women. It was all women. They knew about the compound in a top, whatever that place was that they got him. So they started watching the construction. It was $1 million construction, and the CIA actually got the plans, and they only had plans for 2 stories. Bin Laden was on the 3rd story. So they knew there was no electricity to the thing. There was no telephone lines or something like that. They had electricity. But so they knew that if that's bin Laden, this is the way they found out for sure it was really him. He's been doing all that. You remember all of those? He'd do a video somewhere, and they Secret Service and everybody try to figure out where he was. So these 5 or 6 women said, well, he's got to be communicating somehow. So if it's not cell phones or electronic or telephone, it's with a courier. And so they set up on that house. Well, they actually got a name from somebody that was captured. Al-Kuwaiti was the name that they got, and that ended up being bin Laden's courier. And so they followed him everywhere he went, and he made several trips to that place where they actually shot and killed him. But what a great story. But Clinton really had, if the CIA in their documentation, he told me, Clinton missed 3 attempts that they could have had him. Well, so I've always told people, I watched a movie one time and Clinton was at a function, where there's all these big shots, and one of his aides comes over and says, this certain country's got bin Laden in jail, do we want him? And he thought about it for 20 seconds and said no. That wasn't what that guy said. The guy said the Secret Service, the CIA, has got bin Laden in an exact location. We can take him out with a drone, but it's next to a mosque. And so there was 2 times that, see, those terrorists, they always set up like at a school or in a hospital or next to a mosque or a church, trying to thwart anybody trying to get them. So Clinton really dropped the ball. And then Bush, all of the smoke had blown over by the time Bush took office. But he was warned, within 12 days of him taking office, the CIA director told him that we got a major problem here with bin Laden and Al-Qaeda, and we need to take him out. We've got him on the run, yada, yada, yada. And Bush said, back off. So, but then Obama, when he came in, you got to give credit where credit's due. Obama, his first meeting with the CIA director, said, here's what I want you to do. I want you to find Osama bin Laden and kill him. Anyway, Kathy's in, Michelle's in, John's in, Amy's in, Tino, Elaine, Aaron, Brittany, Carl, Ginger, Sam, James. So we're eating at Angelo's. Here's our Cleveland group. I really wish that was one of the most important interviews I've ever done. And he told me a rough estimate of how much money was spent on just mistakes. The bombing of Tora Bora was billions of dollars. And all we had to do was have our military on the back door and catch him coming out. The others, those other 2 groups, finally, later on in life, people, not the commanders, but other people said, oh, yeah, he came out, had a meal with the leaders, and they let him go. Okay, Cleveland, what's your question? Murder in a White Castle. Yeah? That was not in Fort Worth, but H.H. Holmes, who was really Henry Mudgett, probably one of the most prolific serial killers ever. Yes, he was here. He was hung in 1896 in prison, but there was some kind of like a World's Fair in Chicago, but it wasn't called the Chicago World's Fair. It was something else. But this guy, H.H. Holmes, O.C. Pratt, he had about 5 names. He built a 3-story hotel close to where this World's Fair, I'll call it a World's Fair, was. You can Google H.H. Holmes, Henry Mudgett, O.C. Pratt. Anyway, so going on 1892 and 93, and even earlier, he built this hotel. And so when people would come in and register, they didn't think to ask, why hadn't this place got any doors, any windows or anything. They checked into the hotel, they were taken to their room, the door locked from the outside, you couldn't unlock it. So Holmes, Mudgett, Pratt, whatever his name, and one accomplice would kill these people, because most of them were travelers, visitors from another city, would kill them, dismember them in the basement, and then file false insurance claims. So there's 2 sisters that were actually, I don't think they ever lived in Fort Worth, but they lived in Dallas. Their last name was Williams. They were in Chicago at this World's whatever this thing is, and met Dr. Holmes. I think he was going by Dr. Holmes then. So he finds out that they're wealthy and that their uncle had just died and left him a prime piece of property, a city block basically, at 2nd and Rusk in Fort Worth. Well, Rusk became Commerce, so 2nd and Commerce, right downtown where the courthouse is, or the old fire station. So Musk takes up with these 2 gals. He's dating both of them, and he marries Minnie. And one of the first things he does, he said, we don't ever know what's going to happen to our lives, and that property you've got there in Fort Worth, you ought to sign that over to me. I'm younger than you are. She was older than him by about 8 or 9 years. And there's pictures of her or drawings of her on the internet. So she signs the property over, and Holmes immediately kills her. Then he kills her sister. And he thinks that they're looking for him, the authorities in Chicago, so he comes to Fort Worth, and he's building another 3-story hotel. And his big problem, what happened to him here, is number one, he didn't pay the construction workers. And they weren't like the people in Chicago and saying, oh, okay, next Friday you're going to pay me. They immediately started raising hell. This is when we had a town sheriff. So Holmes would buy all kinds of stuff the train was already here. So when merchandise would come in, bicycles, anything that you could use in a home or something, or for a family, he would buy it on credit because they said, hey, this guy's building a big 3-story hotel over here. And he would sell that stuff way below price because he had no intentions of paying for it, and he used that money to operate on. So his big mistake was not paying the workers, and then when the workers actually found him coming out of a bar, they started chasing him, and he stole the horse. That was the biggest mistake. Back in the 1800s, horse stealing was worse than murdering somebody. If you were caught stealing a horse, they hung you on the spot. There was no jury, no trial, no nothing. They hung you, and so the authorities got him here. They shipped him back to up north, Minnesota or somewhere, and they executed him in '96. His name, God, he's a... Hey, but, okay, so some people say in Chicago he might have killed over 100. I mean, this guy was, just a... And he came from a very rich family. Let me see if I can get pictures of him. Right there he is. What a geeky looking guy he is. So, if you Google him, Henry... His real name was Herman Mudgett, M-U-D-G-E-T. He looks like a Mudgett, doesn't he? Little bitty short guy. But he went under H.H. Holmes. They wrote a book about him, Murder in a White Castle. And, somebody that researched him up north, I talked to this lady before she passed. She said the reason he picked Fort Worth, not only because the two sisters had that property, but Hell's Half Acres reputation. He said, well, hell, I can go down there and get away with anything. So, but he was probably the most prolific serial killer that was ever here. But I don't think he killed anybody here. He killed the two sisters in Chicago, I think. I don't know. We can research him and talk about him. God, what a weird guy he was. Okay, so good news in my opinion. It's probably not y'all's, but so Kellen Moore is now the head coach of the New Orleans Saints. He and Dak Prescott were real friendly. I mean, Kellen Moore thought a lot of people said last year Prescott didn't do that good. That's because he didn't have Kellen Moore as his quarterback coach. So the rumors that are floating around that the owners of the Saints have got plenty of money and they're not in trouble with salary cap is that Prescott will play out 25 here and then go to New Orleans. God, that'd be a godsend. That would free up then, let's see, Jerry's already paid 60 of that $240 million. So this year is going to be 120. He's paid half of it. So please pray for that to happen. But here again, here's another coach that gets away, and I don't understand it. Okay, so I hope all of y'all had a very good Valentine's Day. There was a lot of activity going on yesterday. Anybody got anything they want to, let me get back to the group feed, that they want to discuss or talk about, or come join us for a barbecue today. We hadn't been to Angelo's in a long time. Brittany is in. Brittany, I don't know about calling Angelo's. Yeah, go ahead and call them so they're aware that we're coming. They might not even know who we are. I think depends on who answers. Greg and Don are in. Missy's in. I don't know if he owned the whole block. It was at 2nd and Commerce. Let's Google that and see what is there today. But they actually had the bottom floor built. And I believe that building ended up being called the Pratt Building. Okay, so it's now called the Commerce Building. That is the old fire station. I think. It's where Starbucks is now. Yeah, it's in the old fire station. That was going to be another hotel where he killed people. But so anyway, all the authorities, just to finish up that story, all the insurance companies, they knew they had been defrauded, and so everybody and their dog was looking for this Henry Mudgett. H.H. Holmes. H.H. Holmes is what he preferred to be called. I can't believe some of our bad guys here didn't just dismantle him. You know, there was a guy here back in those days called Soapy Smith. I don't know if y'all have ever heard of him. Man, he was the biggest con in the world. And he operated out of Hell's Half Acre. Anyway, so I think that's good news on the front about the Cowboys. I hope, anyway. Of course, Jerry will screw it up somehow. But I know that Kellen Moore, watching the Cowboys, back in those days, Prescott performed better, but him and Kellen Moore worked very close together. Some sports figure escaped death when his neck was sliced open. What was that? Anyway, so I hope y'all all had a happy Valentine's Day. Monday is President's Day, so everything will be closed. There's one of Fort Worth's finest, Mace Lawrence. How are you, Mace? Yes, it was the south side of downtown. Mace, Hell's Half Acre, basically, you know where the convention center is. That's where Hell's Half Acre was. Right there in that area. And I mean, it was notorious. On any Friday or Saturday night, there's 1,000 or 1,100 prostitutes. I can tell you this. Later in the early 1900s, somebody at one of these institutions did a study of there were several cow towns like that where the cattle drovers came through. Kansas was one, Dodge City, all of those places, and those people were trained to extract every quarter you had, and they did it. They said that Fort Worth's Hell's Half Acre was the best at it. When those cattle drivers would come through, after the prostitutes got through with them, there was no money. And then they got on the trail and went to Kansas, but they didn't have to have any money because they were fed, they slept on the ground. I mean, that's just the way it was, but and the police, for a long time, there was only one police officer in Hell's Half Acre. And he was the son of E.M. Daggett. And he was a mix, part African American and part white. And some people think that he was on the take. I mean, you almost had to be. There was some of the largest saloon owners ended up in the country were right here at one time. And in fact, Fort Worth, the city, welcomed him. Luke Short was a United States-wide known gambler. And so the city of Fort Worth went to Luke Short one time and said, hey, you get some of your buddies from some of these other towns that have these big games. Pharaoh was the game of choice. We'll give them a location, a building, no rent, and give them $3,500 up front. That was in the 1860s and 1870s. They wanted that. So there was no industry here. And back then, when a mayor would get elected, he'd say, I'm shutting down Hell's Half Acre, getting rid of the prostitutes, 24/7 gambling. Within a day, the city elders would say, if you plan on getting paid, you need to leave everything like it is. That's our only source of income. So the sheriff would fine every class of prostitute, which was the crib girls. They were 25 cents to 50 cents. The saloon girls were $1 to $2, and then the madams out of the hotels, they were $3 to $5. The girls, and then the madams, Mary Porter, they fined her every 2 weeks, and it was a couple of $100. She ended up owning, when she died, I've got a copy of her inventory. She owned like 8 parcels of land in downtown Fort Worth. Diane is in. So, but that right there is where Hell's Half Acre was. And that was the only thing that kept Fort Worth going. And then when the train got here in 1876, so then the cattle were still being shipped up to the east. But once the packing houses opened in 1902 and 1903, there was no need for them to take the cows anywhere farther, because they'd come here and slaughter them here, put the beef on rail cars, and send it up north. But the acre continued to survive somewhat. And then the final nail in the coffin was when the United States military decided to build Camp Bowie, which was a training center for World War I military. You could not have any house of ill repute or any alcohol sold within 5 miles of that military installation. So, and it was no longer, if the sheriff and city council said, oh, they won't know, the military knew. The MPs would go over and shut them down. So that was the end of Hell's Half Acre, 1916, 1917. There's Roy Charles Brooks. But it served its purpose. You know, a lot of people, if you had to be known for anything, we were known for all of the bad guys coming here. They were all here. Sam Bass was here regularly. Wyatt Earp had stole a horse up in Sherman and came down here, and to avoid being hung. Like I say, back in the 1800s, if you stole somebody's horse, they hung you on the spot. They'd find a tree and hang you. There was no judge and jury. It was the most heinous crime you could do. And I've heard historians say that Big Nose Kate and Doc Holliday weren't here, but they were here. Cole Younger, when he got out of prison, he actually moved to an area. He'd been down here to Hell's Half Acre, but he moved kind of over to the Irving area, and he would ride in a buggy over here on Thursday and deal faro out of the Stag Saloon until Saturday. And Sunday he'd ride back to his house. But they were, and of course we know the most famous photo in Fort Worth is the Fort Worth Five. Butch Cassidy, Kid Curry. So they were all here. Big Deacon Jim Miller, who dressed like a priest, and they don't know how many people he killed. He was here. And they actually had him in jail here. Bat Masterson, you got to remember, back then, all of these famous marshals, Wyatt Earp, Bat Masterson, all of them, they were marshals at one time, and then they were robbing stagecoaches at another time. But their most important job was to collect the county tax. And how much of that money got back to the tax assessor? Not much. So that marshal's job was worth a lot of money. And Tarrant County was a pretty good sized county. And somebody asked me, yes, we are now the 11th largest city. We overcame Austin, Texas. So we're the 11th largest city in the United States, the 15th largest county. Well, you're thinking about, there was a district attorney, his name was McLean, and he's related to the Bob McLeans and the judge that was a McLean. Oh yeah, Hell's Half Acre. It was. I decided I'm gonna start doing public speaking again. So, and I can talk for hours about Hell's Half Acre. There was a lot of stuff that went on here that most people don't even know about. But you can just imagine a 20-block area and 1,000 prostitutes in one night. The Crib Girls, all they had over on Jones Street, towards the lower end where Benny Keith and everything is, they just had little shanties. They had a door opening that there was no door. Sometimes there was. They had window openings that there was never any glass. There was just a sheet or something over it. And there was a lot of heinous stuff. There was one of these prostitutes one night was crucified. She got her throat cut and then was nailed to the door of her little shanty. They never did catch whoever did that. But it was lawless. I mean, there was everything was 24/7. And on the streets, they would have card tables out front of the saloons, and 3-card monte and the shell game and all of that. They were experts at taking your money. When you left Hell's Half Acre, you had absolutely no money. And they were very good at it. And so, like I say, the city of Fort Worth, that was our source of income. We didn't have any industry here. There was nothing, cattle, but that was it. The cattle drives that came through brought the cattle drovers. So that would be a new group of people to skim out of their money, and then people would come from all over. It was known that didn't matter what you did, you could come to Fort Worth and Hell's Half Acre, and you can stay here for weeks and nobody's ever going to catch you. John's in, Stephen's in. There was 3 photographers, the Schwartz brothers. They all had different studios, but I think they were all on Main Street. And one of the Schwartz brothers is the one that took the photo of the Fort Worth 5. That was just luck that there was a Pinkerton and he was walking down the street and he saw that photograph in the window. And the only reason that he even thought that it might be somebody, the only known photograph of any of those guys, Kid Curry, Sundance Kid, whatever, was Leroy Parker's prison photo from Utah. And this guy looked at it and he thought, without the derby, that kind of looks like Leroy Parker. And that's what hung him. That's why I always say these bounty hunters, Bass Reeves especially, who got recovered thousands of people. I don't know how in the hell he did it. There was no photographs of these people. When people call me and say, hey, there's this wanted poster on eBay for $500, they're all phony. There wasn't 25 wanted posters in the entire time. Now, I've been told that there was a wanted poster for Billy the Kid, but I don't believe it. There was on the second page of the newspaper, the governor, Crittenden, put a reward for Billy the Kid. But, so how could Bass Reeves, being an African-American guy, know what any of these white outlaws look like? I mean, I don't understand it. I'm betting that there's a lot of those people that he turned in that weren't who they thought they were. I'm willing to bet a lot of money on that. So, there might have been wanted posters, but there was no photographs. back then photographs were expensive as hell, and they were called tintype, which printed in reverse. That's why they thought Billy the Kid was shot one-handed and it was really the other hand, because it was a tintype photo. And you used to have to, the photographers you'd have to take your shirt off, and they'd put this wooden brace where you would hold your head still, because you've seen the deals where they hold the deal up and flash, because if you moved, that screwed up the whole photo. Ricky's in, Gene's in. Gene, you need to come join us for lunch, buddy. This ain't a request. I need to see you. It's been too long. Come see me before you go to the cemetery. Got it? I'm serious. Okay. Me and James Benzan are gonna... I want James to talk to you. Okay? For sure now. 1 o'clock, Angelo's. Christy's in. Okay, sir. That's good. Don't mean to be harsh, but I know you're going through something, and maybe James can help. Okay, so anyway, back to Hell's Half Acre. It did exactly what it was designed to do. Strip people out of their money, and the city actually got some of it. The marshal or sheriff or whoever of authority would fine these prostitutes, depending on how much money the city needed, sometimes every week. So that was our main source of income, was the fine money that they got. And they not only fined the prostitutes and the madams, they fined the bar owners. The guy that owned the Stag Saloon paid, I've seen reports, he would pay $400 or $500 a week to operate. He was one of the more famous. Mr. Ward, W.H. Ward, on the White Elephant Saloon. That was when it was the original one downtown on Main, 808 to 812 Main. He paid a lot of money every week. They just said, hey, you want to keep operating here? This is what you got to do. And so when a mayor would come in and he would say, well, I told the people I'm going to shut down all that. Well, guess what? Do you want to get a check or you want to work for free? Oh, no, I need to get paid. Well, then you need to turn a blind eye to it. So one of the biggest reasons that it got shut down, especially the prostitution, is J. Frank Norris, First Baptist preacher. He tried to shut it down and they wouldn't do it. So on Sunday's sermon, he would say, and he had the largest congregation at one time in the United States. He had a church here and a church in Detroit. He would say, I need 40 of you ladies down here Friday night about 7 o'clock, and the church was downtown. And so then they'd walk down to Hell's Half Acre out in front of the prostitution houses, and they'd say, okay, Larry O'Neill, Maria's going to know where you're at. You're at Mabel's Whorehouse. Have fun. That shut it down overnight. So J. Frank Norris was one of the driving, and the reformist, the ladies' suffrage movement, all of that there was a lady that would go into saloons. She was well known all over the country. They called her the Hammer Lady. She'd walk in with a hammer and just go behind the bar and start breaking up all the whiskey bottles and glasses and stuff, begging them to get her, to put her in jail so she could get in the newspaper. So the Acre didn't have much of a chance then. But the police were, it was all graft, everything. You had to make a living. And if the city couldn't pay you, then you had to steal it yourself. So we're lucky that Fort Worth became the city. We're now the 11th largest city in the United States. We could have very easily, if the train had not come here, 1876, we'd be like Thurber, Texas. There wouldn't be any Fort Worth. It'd be a ghost town. And believe me, Dallas tried to stop the train from getting here every way they could. I'll do a story on that. The last 24 hours, the government, the Congress down in Austin had put a date. If the train didn't end to Fort Worth by a certain date, we're taking away all the money that we had promised to give you. And the Texas Pacific Railroad, the main lending company up in Chicago, had gone broke, so they weren't able to do any construction. So Fort Worth had, on a moment's notice, there was like 30, K.M. Van Zandt, all of our civic leaders, John Peter Smith, they started a company called Fort Worth Railroad Construction, and they finished the track. But like going over the river, the Trinity, and in Arlington, they just laid the track. It wasn't even nailed down, and this little old wood burning engine would come across it like creeping, and they'd be sitting there holding the track, but it finally came in. And I've got the only two top 10 photos that there is. I paid $25,000 for the pair 30 years ago. That's the only known photos of that little train coming in 1876. So, but then we kind of got, the train brought in commerce. The buffalo hunters would stack up. I've got photos of down where the TMP is now. Back in those days, they'd stack buffalo hides 15 foot tall. And you just have to kind of go through there to get to the train station. They'd sell those buffalo hides for $1.50 a buffalo hide. We killed off the Native American Indians' food source. You're talking about abusive to the land. We're supposed to be the carekeepers of the land. We destroyed it and continue to do so today. Native American Indians did not. They only took what they had to have to survive. And a lot of people say, well, we've discriminated against, check with the Native American Indians. We actually had a president, Andrew Jackson, in 1873, signed a bill. It's called the Indian Removal Act. I.e., they just put a bullseye on all the Indians' backs. And he ordered 7 tribes marched out of Florida in the winter, and that was the Trail of Tears. He wiped out about 75% of 4 or 5 of those tribes. Terrible. So when he loses office to Polk, he tells the new president, hey, well, I really hadn't got a home anywhere, so can I live here in the White House for a while? And the guy says, yeah, okay. So he goes down to Texas, the southern border, and the United States and the Mexicans are having a skirmish down there. He goes over on the Mexican side and tells them, hey, the American army is going to come over tomorrow morning and attack. He started the Mexican-American War, this ex-president. And everybody thinks he's a hero. The things you don't know about history. I hope that everybody comes and eats with us. Hey, and we've got these, for people my age, or close, we've got these Icky Twerp and Gorgon. Nightmare, you remember Nightmare? T-shirts. These are straight from Paul Canfield. Paul lives in Portland, Oregon. Paul Canfield is Bill Canfield's son. Bill Canfield was Icky Twerp. He was also Gorgon. There was 3 or 4 of those actors. And I used to think when I was growing up, I'd go over to a friend's house and watch it. We didn't have a TV. And I thought it'd be all over the world, but it's just barely in Fort Worth and Dallas. I don't think they even got it in Waco. There's Harold. Uh, yeah, you know, Fort Worth's history is, it's really very, very interesting, and we don't teach it. And that's a shame. That's a crime. Uh, Fourth and fifth graders ought to know it completely. I've been on against the mayors ever since Mike Moncrief. I say, you know, we send our kids to school. We send them to little school, middle school, high school. They go off to college and they never come back. That's because they don't know anything about the rich history here. It's a crime, really. And, you know, and then we get into it with, I look at the Tarrant County Historic Society and look at their posts. They make one post every other day or once every week. And they might get 3 likes and 1 comment. I was at one time asked if I would be the historian for the Commissioner's Court, and then they pulled that away and said, well, he doesn't know anything about history. At that point, I challenged the entire Tarrant County Historic Society to come over here or anywhere and let's have a debate on history. I'll take on every one of them. They didn't accept that. Lisa's in. Kate is in. But we've got a wonderful museum here. We get nobody to help. I've had 2 donations since I've been begging for it. At some point, I'm not going to be able to keep paying $5,000 a month and no money for it. And the city, if the city lets this collection get away, that's criminal. Because if I was to pass today, my kids would piecemeal it. They'd sell it on a Christie's auction, a large Christie's auction. We've got 93,000 pieces. One-of-a-kind stuff. Y'all remember the M&O subway? I've got the Trainmaster Control right over in this corner. Leonard's donated it to me. Fort Worth University, it's over there. Fort Worth University was here before Texas Christian. There's 9 known diplomas and I own them all. They're all big, they're all cloth. I got so many one-of-a-kind things over here. Eamon had 85 keys to the city made. I own 68 of them. But anyway, for those just joining, the reason I was late this morning is I met with one of our members, had a good friend that was a CIA analyst for 28 years, I believe. And he told me he was in the Bin Laden team. That was an amazing story. And for people that didn't think Obama went after him, the first meeting he had with the CIA, Obama said, your main job is to find Osama bin Laden and kill him. George Bush had a chance. When we bombed Tora Bora, Bush's administration, I guess Cheney or Rumsfeld, told somebody, the American forces said, well, these Afghanistan groups want to guard the back door if he comes out there. They said, okay. Well, those were the people. The CIA had told Bush's administration, these warlords that are supposedly watching the back door were fighting hand in hand with bin Laden against the Soviets. And that's what happened. They let him go. But Clinton had him, they had him dead to rights and had a drone that could have taken him out, and Clinton let it go. Clinton had 2 or 3 attempts. Bush had a couple, but Obama. And the people, the CIA analysts, the main group that found him was 5 women, no men. It's called the Bin Laden team. God, it was a great interview. I got fired up, and we can't talk about it. He can't talk about it. They signed some kind of an agreement. I don't know. It's kind of like, I guess, Fort Worth Police the same way. Mace, do you have to sign something? I know when I ask if I wanted to have Mace Lawrence, who's on the feed right now, he's a Fort Worth police officer, have him on to get interviewed, he'd have to clear it through some part of the police department to even come over here. They just can't talk about stuff. I don't understand why. Anyway, this guy, he said, well, I've heard a lot about you. I heard if you walk in your door over there, it's filmed, audio and filmed. I said, that's true. If you come into this room, you're filmed. And he said, well, I thought that was against the law, not in Texas this time. And I don't ever use that. But if anybody was to ever come up and challenge me like these politicians when I interview them and say, well, I didn't say that. Well, if it ever went to court and I had to use it, I'd say, well, here's the tape, let's see. And it's not only your voice, it's seeing you say it. But anyway, Rosario is in, Lisa's in. Y'all come eat with us. We have a Saturday lunch every Saturday. Penny is in, Missy. I'm going to post the links to have a donation, $20, $50, whatever. I got to have some help, or this deal won't keep going. I can't keep paying $5,000 a month. I've been doing that for years. You know, about 20 months ago, Alice Walton's bean counters came over here. We talked about how much for everything. We agreed on a price. Never heard another word. And I speak at all these museums, and she is on the board at the Modern, at all these other places. It's a real tragedy. They're going to let all this history go. Because my idea would be to have the Fort Worth Memories Museum in the City Hall, like on the second floor, third floor, whatever. And when you walked up to a display, it would set off a sensor and it had my voice describing what it is. Because when I go, the history goes. The real history. Okay, so I'm here till 12:15 or so, and then I'm going to go meet the crew over at Angelo's. We try to eat somewhere different every week to, you know, help our restaurants out. Anybody got anything they want to... I heard the stock show was another record year. I don't see how people can go to... how you can afford to pay for it. The rodeo. Yeah, Hell's Half Acre is... Dr. Richard Seltzer wrote a good book, and it's called Hell's Half Acre. I've got 2 or 3 copies of it here. And he did a lot of research. Well, he didn't. TCU students did. But there's very, very, very few photographs. Just like the other day, I discovered I buy this stuff off people that were the founding fathers. When they get ready to sell that person's stuff, I buy it all. And so I had bought some stuff, and it had a scrapbook, and it was from 1920, and it had 50 photos of the first cooks, which was called Free Baby Hospital. It was on 2400 Winton Terrace West, and then it morphed down to where that Ray Ingert, I think that was that photography studio, that was part of it too. Kyle and them own it now. They're going to build on it. But I've got 50 photos of the nurses, the doctors, inside of it. Cook's Children's got one, and that one they've got, I gave them. Okay, let's do the sponsors. We still don't have a painter. I need a painter, a tire store. I need a lot of stuff. Yellow Snake Horses River, Brazos River Ranch. You can go horseback riding over here. You get 90 minutes for $75. There's the telephone number. Give them a call. If your air conditioning or heating needs fixed, A-Bird, AC, and Heating, Dub Peacock. Eric Walsh, Realtor. He's on Larry's Kids board, on my board for the bicycle giveaway. Burt Ladner Real Estate. Wes Williams is on that, associated with that group, and he is also on my board of directors. Steve Coburn, Coburn's Catering. They just got through catering to the stock show, the fairgrounds, all of that. There's Dickie Carr Sand and Gravel. That's owned by Pat and Richard Carr. Richard Carr is also the first person to write Larry's Kids, the 501, a check for $5,000 last year. There's Richard's nephew, Dickie Carr. He owns a company called Grateful for Your Trees. Anything to do with trees. They chop them down, trim them. If you got a stump you need ground down, he's got all the equipment to take out big trees, anything. There's Express Dent. Dick Regester started that company about the same time I started the detail shop 35, 40 years ago. Dick now lives in Florida, but his operating partner is Eric. They're over on White Settlement Road. So if you got door dings, hail damage, anything like that, that's the place to take it. They do great work. Fort Worth Lumber is off South Freeway 35. If you need anything to do with lumber or plans or anything, and they have been with me 10 years or so, the bike giveaway and being a sponsor. Jenny Stewart is our State Farm insurance lady. If you're using Farmers or Allstate or somebody like that, call and get a quote. This insurance is outrageous. There is Brandon Cross Electric, family-owned electrical company. So if you need an electrician, call Brandon. He's also real active in civic community stuff. K-Ranch Roofing, Jorge Hernandez owns that. If you think you got roof damage, don't get a ladder and climb up there and fall off and break your leg. Call K-Ranch. You'll talk to a lady named Bree, and they'll send somebody out, and they don't charge you for that. You might have no problems. Old South Pancake House, Rex Benson. I knew Rex's daddy before Rex was born. So they have been, the Benson family has owned Old South since 1962. Rex now owns it. They've got that one on University is 24/7. The one in Burleson, they close at 10 or something at night. Fort Worth Optimist Club. They do a lot of great stuff for our youth. Athletic programs, scholarships, all kinds of stuff. Passport Getaways. If you're going to take a trip or book a cruise or go to Europe, go to Vegas, whatever, call and let them do the legwork and you just supply the money. Rains Plumbing, that's another family-owned business. We're big about family-owned businesses. We've had a lot of great reviews on people that have used Rains. Charlie Guerin's Railhead Barbecue. Charlie is also on my board of directors at Larry's Kids. Longtime sponsor and very active in the bike giveaway. Very, very active. In fact, last year, December 14th, at the bicycle giveaway, Farrington Field, we had mayors Mike Moncrief, Betsy Price, and Maddie Parker were all there. Charlie was there, Brooke Rollins was there, Carlos Flores was there, Michael Crane was there, and they all were active giving away bikes and toys and helmets. So last year, we gave away 1,120 bikes, exactly. So to date, that was the 38th year that I've been giving away bikes. We've given away 19,550 bikes. So this year we'll go over 20,000 bikes. That's over $1 million if you count them at $50 a piece. Casey Crawl Insurance. Don't try to navigate Medicare or Medicaid. Let them tell you how it works, because you'll go nuts trying to figure it out. It's another government program that there's no how-to book. There's Rex's Bar and Grill, another Rex Benson owned company. That used to be Macaroni Grill. Now it's a sports bar. And on the Super Bowl Sunday, we had 23 of our members that gave that place a 5-star review. Good job, Rex. Stroud Auto Supply. They're over in the Haltom City, Riverside area. I used to buy parts there when I was a kid, 16 years old. Swartz and Hanson Architects. They are also active in the bike giveaway and being the sponsor. Phelps Family Auto Care is out in the Burleson area, and we've gotten a lot of great reviews off of. They really take it an extra mile. G2 Garage is in the White Settlement area. They've got a $25 new client special. I've sent several people over there, and they've all been super pleased. Alpha Design and Build, that's Lance Sanders. If you want to add on or get a room remodeled or add a story onto your building or your house, they can do it. Fort Worth Florists, they were swamped for the last 2 or 3 days, probably still today with Valentine's orders. They are over way out Camp Bowie, 8247. They do a good, Jeanette and her team does a great job out there. Here's my IT director, Scott Sumner. He can build websites or technical, whatever you need, he can fix it. Clay Winstead Paint and Body. I've been doing business with the Winsteads for 40 years. Great people. They've been active in our bike giveaway and sponsorship for years. That's it. So we need a tire store. We need a painting company, a paint contractor. I can't believe, I guess all the paint contractors are just super full. I don't have any idea. Did Hamas release some more U.S. citizens? Somebody just said they just saw a squib said they released 3 more. I don't know, but he's wearing out ink on pens, signing executive orders every day. He's got his own television show, I guess. Okay, so, dang, I've sat here and talked too long. Anyway, but I am gonna, Gangsters in Cowtown is one of my companies, and it's, that was a family business for me. I'm gonna start doing public speaking again at different places. So, nobody else has got anything. I'll see y'all in a couple of hours at Angelo's. We'll eat some good barbecue. Don't forget, I need donations. Gotta have them.